So I think we'll get started. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our faculty panel on cross-faculty collaboration innovations for cultivating growth. We are excited to be here today with a lovely group of panelists, and just super excited to be here with you all today at Celebrate Learning Week. So we want to start off the session. Let me just next slide here. By just taking a moment to acknowledging that Celebrate Learning Week is taking place at the UBC campus, which is on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Musqueam people, and that the UBC Okanagan campus is on the unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan peoples. I also would like to share that I was in a workshop a few weeks ago where I first heard the term land commitment in replacement of a land acknowledgement. And I think this shift in language really made me pause and think about how a land commitment could action some of the things that we often talk about in terms of reconciliation and decolonization. So, for example, thinking about what needs to be learned about the history of the land, what relationships need to be mended or fostered with both human and more than human others, what is something we can do at UBC and in our own communities to work towards decolonization. What ways of knowing and being can be shared with others. So these are just some of the things that I've been thinking about lately, and I've been trying to action them in very small ways as I recognize that I still have a long way to go on my own learning journey. So I would just like to invite you all to consider what a land commitment also might look for you. So a little bit about me. My name's Paulina Semenec. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a first generation settler and immigrant who came to Canada in the late 1980s from the former Czechoslovakia. I'm currently joining you today from my home in beautiful Squamish, BC, on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam First Nations. And as you can see from some of the photos that I'm sharing with you, cultivating a deep respect for this land is really important to me as I'm raising my family here. I work at the Center for Teaching and Learning and Technology on the Vancouver campus. I'm on the Indigenous Initiatives team as an educational and evaluation consultant, where I've been for the last 3 years now. However, like many of you who have joined UBC, maybe as students, that was my case when I joined in 2012, when I started graduate school, I've just never left. And so I've really made UBC part of my community. And so I'm really excited to be talking about community and collaboration with the folks today. And I'll pass it on to Judy to do her intro as well.
Hello, my name is Judy Chen, and I am also an education consultant. I work at CTLT along with Paulina. I first came here in the late 1980s when with my family when we immigrated from the other side of the Pacific Ocean on a colonial land. My parents really never quite understand the difference in the colonial history in Canada and in Hong Kong. They had a very different experience. They actively chose to leave their homeland to go to a colonial land where they were able to survive. And so then they don't quite understand that we are an invited guest here in Canada on the Turtle Island. But I think now that I learned a lot in the last 15 years, and it's my commitment to pay attention to the land and yes, that's the land commitment. Pay attention to continue to cultivate the land and take care of the land and be a part of it. So my education background is in chemistry and food chemistry, and I find a nice picture there, and I just wanted to share some of the plants that we have, some flowers that we have in our garden. That's what I like to do on the weekends, just mostly looking at it because my husband does a lot of the gardening. I do some of the gardening too, but and the big trees, I just really enjoy having that big tree in front of my where we live. So thank you very much. Community is also part of my teaching. I really wanted to create that learning community in my course. And And thank you, Paulina, for helping us to put together the panel. And I think without further ado, I really am excited to listen to what the panelists have to say about how they collaborate and build community in their classrooms.
Thank you so much, Judy, for that introduction. I always learn something from folks when I facilitate together because I'm like, oh, I didn't know that about you. So yeah, lovely to hear more about you, Judy. So just an invitation being together in community in an online space. So we want to thank you for sharing the space with us today. So we hope this 90-minute session offers you with an opportunity to connect and contemplate some of the topics that we'll be discussing today. We encourage you to eat if you need to, as we realize this session is running through your lunch hour. Feel free, please, to be on or off camera, whatever feels most comfortable for you. Judy will kindly be moderating our chat, so please feel free to add your questions into the chat at any time. Also, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, you can also reach out to our events team. They are here today in the chat as well. So please feel free to reach out and say if something's not working for you, if you can't hear, they will be able to help you out. We'd also like to invite you to treat this online space as a community that you care for. Even though you may not know us, or at least not all of us, hopefully by the end of our time together, you'll feel that you can reach out to us and maybe connect on an idea or a project that may be percolating for you. We often attend sessions where we see the same names on the screen. Perhaps they are future colleagues or friends, but we rarely find the time or the courage to connect on a deeper level. So we'd like to encourage you to be in community with us today, and to enter the space with curiosity and kindness. So before we introduce our lovely panelists, we would just like to say a little bit about how this panel came together. So Judy and I were part of the planning committee of putting together the faculty panel. We discussed the theme of community and collaboration, as this is something that was really important to the both of us, both in the work that we do at CTLT, but also on a personal level. So we gathered a list of amazing folks at both UBC Vancouver campus and at UBC Okanagan campus who do cross-faculty collaborative work, but also collaborative work with students and community in and outside of campus. So for this reason, today our focus is going to be on collaboration and community, as we feel that these two are intertwined. So now we'll move on to our introductions, our faculty. So we have them in alphabetical order. So Richard Arias Hernandez, you are up first.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Paulina and Judy, for organizing this panel, and to all attendees for joining us today. My name is Richard Arias Hernandez. I am also an uninvited settler in Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh territories, traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories, in which I've been living since 2008. So I am very appreciative of that. And my commitment is to bring those relationships and line commitments, as Paulina mentioned, into my teaching and educational leadership, something that I try to do all the time. I am an associate professor of teaching in the School of Information, Faculty of Arts, and an interdisciplinary unit itself. And I've been lucky to have found collaborators in different departments and faculties here at UBC since I started working here 13 years ago. So happy to share that with you in this panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. JP, you are up.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is JP Katungo. I'm an assistant professor in the Institute for Gender, Race, Sexuality, and Social Justice. I also teach in the Asian Canadian and Asian Migration Studies program, which is not on the slide there, on a course buyout basis. And I'm also co-director of the Center for Asian Canadian Research and Engagement. Those will become important as I share with you some of my reflections on community and collaboration. I too am a first generation uninvited settler from the Philippines, which has been in the community has been in the news a lot lately. And so I just wanted to also flag that as something that I'm carrying with me. That too will quite likely come up again later. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, JP. Up next, we have Christine.
Hi, yes. Hello, welcome everyone. Like all of us here, I am situated on Tsleil-Waututh, Stolo, Squamish, and Musqueam territory, so I am a visitor. Yes, my home department is art history, visual art, and theory, and I'm on the visual art side, so much more practice oriented. But I'm currently the chair of the Bachelor Media Studies program, which is something that Richard Arias and Hernandez and I just trade off every so often, it seems, which will be a huge part of what we'll talk about here, as well as the way that this program brought us together. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Up next, we have Melissa.
Hello, I'm coming to you from the unceded territories of the Silk Okanagan peoples. I'm an associate professor of teaching in 2 different departments and 2 different faculties, so English and Cultural Studies and Gender, Women, and Sexuality Studies. I was hired to teach first-year English 14 years ago, and my teaching has really changed over the course of 14 years. For the last 5 years, I've been cross-appointed with Gender, Women, and Sexuality Studies. In both programs, I teach courses in writing and pop culture. So last term, I taught a course on vampires and pop culture, which was oversubscribed, which is not surprising, I suppose. And in English and Cultural Studies, I teach critical theory at both the undergraduate and the graduate level. And I would just say I'm one of only 2 instructors who teach across the 2 arts faculties that we have here on the Okanagan campus. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And last but not least, Jenna.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. I'm an assistant professor of teaching in the School of Biomedical Engineering. That school is under 2 faculties, so Faculty of Medicine and Faculty of Applied Science. So sort of built in that kind of collaboration spirit to the department that I'm in. I joined in 2019 and our program was just 1 year old. So I've been a part of a lot of building, which I think naturally involves a lot of collaboration. I won't get ahead of ourselves with the panel yet. I just thought I forgot to mention I'm also on UBC Vancouver campus right now. So that's the home of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh. Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Jenna. And I also forgot to, I think, speak to the slide right before this. I think it was showing up, but because my screen is all weird when I'm in speaker mode, I can't see my slides very well. So I did forget to mention how we're going to spend the next 90 minutes. So I just wanted to quickly overview that we are going to do our faculty panelist introductions, which we just did. Then we're going to have about 30 minutes or so of a discussion around community and collaboration. So Judy and I will moderate that, and I will put the questions into the chat just so we can remove the slideshow and we can sort of see everybody in the space. And then after that, we're trying something new where we're going to get the panelists to engage in conversation with one another. So we've invited them to pose one question to the panelists, and we'll go in the same order as the introduction. So I've got that written down. So we can spend about 20 or so minutes or however long it takes with the panelist posed questions. And then, of course, we will open it up to the larger group for some Q&A. But please do feel free to, as you're listening and as you're engaging with the conversation, just feel free to post any questions or thoughts that you have in the chat. And Judy will be moderating that. So if anything comes up that's like super relevant to what was just mentioned, we can definitely bring it up as well during the conversation. So you don't need to wait until the end, but we will definitely have plenty of time to do a larger group Q&A at the end as well. And I will pose the first question, which again, we tried to keep the questions super broad because of the wide range of experience that everybody brings to this panel. And so I will post that question in the chat for everyone to see, so it's a little bit easier. So the first question, and again, anyone can answer at any time, is what does collaboration and or community mean to you in the context of teaching and learning.
Maybe I'll start. I think when I think about community and collaboration, I think it's all about relationship building and making connections. And I think those connections are really essential in teaching and learning, not just with like connections we make to the material, but being in a shared space with each other and hearing different perspectives. Yeah, I also think the word reciprocity comes to mind when I think about community and collaboration, like it's sort of like a two-way street.
I think about it, and we talked about this when we were planning for today. I think about it primarily within my classroom, and the one course that I have designed that goes across both faculties is a third-year writing course called Writing the Self in Theory and Practice. And what I've seen in that class is a sort of on-the-ground example of reciprocity and relationality, a real building of community, because students are writing about themselves in complicated ways that they probably didn't imagine when they entered the class, but then they have to share that writing with one another, and I change up the groups every time. So by the end of the term, they have shared their writing with at least half of the members of the class. And I think that really, I can feel after the first workshop, I set them in groups of 3, a shift in how they respond to one another. And by the end of the term, we really have built a community in the classroom. And it's built communities that have sort of formed outside of the classroom as well.
I'll jump in. When I was thinking about this question, I mean, my sociological background kicks in without a doubt. So I try to put this in words as groups of, when I think about community in the context of teaching and learning, what I think of is groups of people from which we derive identity, learning, meaning making, membership, and to which we actively contribute for the continuity, growth, transformation, and sustainability. So it's very like, and I see it in a very sociological way. And when I was thinking about to whom connected, my first thought always goes to concept like community of practice from Etienne Wegner and Leif, which I learned about in late 1990s, and I still carry those concepts with me in my teaching and learning. So this is obviously a very broad understanding that doesn't limit the concept of communities of learning or collaboration towards learning to what happens in the classroom or in institutional settings. And it's very broad, and it opens spaces to, go beyond the classroom or create relationships with non-institutional actors that can collaborate in learning. And obviously, I'm pointing towards, for example, community engaged learning, another kind of forms that provide a kind of learning.
So it's fun to go after a few people so that a lot of the ideas are definitely exchanged. But yes, I think something I'm thinking about the community of faculty members that got together to do the curriculum renewal for the Bachelor of Media Studies that Richard and I led. And as much as we have a lot in common in this thematic of media that brought us together, I think what was so beautiful about the community starting to articulate itself was the multiplicity in it, the different approaches, the way that we as faculty or as disciplinary insights could have a particular way in on a common theme. And so we all sort of had a very formal identity that then had to negotiate with what it meant to be together. And I think, it's that multiplicity that's actually kind of an exciting thing to keep going. But then to be in conversation is always a good excuse.
As I was reflecting on this question, I thought of kind of 4 iterations or ways of thinking about community that I know I've practiced and I've been in community with. And this is derived from some of the collaborative work and relationships that I have that show up also in my teaching practice, both in the classroom and outside. Community as fuel. It's a way to kind of energize um, our pedagogical and curricular practice. And I think part of that is related to the second point around community, which is community as knowledge. There is much expertise, ways of being, know-how that exist in community that are not often reflected in the university. And so community can fuel a different kind of approach to how we understand knowledge in the community, and therefore show up in the in teaching practice in particular ways. I also think of community as an ethos, perhaps an ethic. Community demands particular responsibilities of us as teachers and practitioners. And then finally, community as a form of support. And I think of this in particular from my perspective as a first generation student, first generation in my family to go to post-secondary education, and also as a racialized faculty member at UBC, where communities within UBC, but also outside of the university, provide sources of support in context of long histories of institutional abandonment and extraction, particularly of historically marginalized communities. Those are some things that come up for me.
Thank you so much. I have so many questions already just off of that first question, but I feel like they will be answered with the other questions coming up. So, and I also want to make space for folks in the room to ask questions as we go. But the other thing that we want to add to the conversation is around what specific work have you engaged in terms of collaborative work or community work within teaching and learning spaces. And something we talked about was that this can be very broad, right? So we can think about it as co-teaching, community work, research, engaging with students in various ways. So I think you have all a lot of experience within this realm. So I'll post this question in the chat as well. But again, feel free to answer as you wish and in any order.
I can start since I went last, the last time. There is so much to share with regards to this question. I guess I'll start with just acknowledging that the two units that I'm a part of, the Institute for Gender, Race, Sexuality, and Social Justice, and the Asian Canadian and Asian Migration Studies program, are based on community critiques of the failure of the university to deal with marginalization. And so it's both feminist and queer and critical race studies, critical ethnic studies come from community demands for the university to do better. So that's something that I take seriously in my role here at UBC, particularly in the context of increasing attacks on EDI as a principle that we unfortunately are very familiar with in this institution. So that's one. The second thing that I will mention is that I teach a course in ACAM called, the nickname for the course, because it's currently a kind of taught under a shell number, is what are we calling it? The Asian Canadian Research and Engagement Studio. And in that course, I co-teach with someone from the community, Christina Lee from the Hua Foundation. And we can talk about that perhaps when we get to the challenges part, what it means for someone from the community to be brought in as a co-teacher in a horizontal relationship with a university-based faculty member. And in that class, apart from co-teaching with Christina, developing everything from the beginning and delivering everything till the end, we also bring in community projects partners, community organizations in particular, to work with our students on how to do community engaged research in Asian Canadian studies in a responsible, ethical, and meaningful way. So community also comes in as a source of grounded knowledge in that sense. So those are two. There's more to share, but those are two that come up for me.
I'll jump next and talk a little bit about that project with Christine. That's one of a good example of collaboration across departments and also faculties that I've been involved here while at UBC. And it's related to the Bachelor of Media Studies, in which we had the opportunity to go through a curriculum evaluation and renewal process that took over, I would say, about 5 years. Christine, correct me if it was actually more than that. But it was such a large project that it is impossible to make it alone. First of all, with this kind of magnitude, projects cannot be done by only one individual. It takes a community to think about, plan, and realize this and implement it in practice. And in our case, involves faculty, staff, directors of units, of 8 different units on campus, different departments, 2 faculties, arts and science, all working together. So it's different levels of complexity and relationship with other units that are not academic. For example, Community Center for Community Engaged Learning, that also was involved at some point. That was probably one of the best examples in which I've been involved. I also have experiences working with community engaged learning in 2 of my courses, Info 250 in the Media Studies, and in graduate course like BR5A2, which is digital collections, which I've been working since I started here at UBC in 2013, community engaged learning projects, in which I always make clear to students that their partners are also their teachers, right? Those are learning opportunities, and they establish very respectful and ethical relationships, as JP mentioned, in order to create mutually beneficial learning situations, right? We become teachers at some point, we become learners at some point, but is this situation in which we go beyond the classroom, right, and expand the learning scenarios beyond the classroom towards the community and bringing back. Okay, that's for now. Christine, correct me.
Yeah, I feel like I should go next just because there's just too many overlaps here. But yeah, it's interesting. Both Richard and I had brought engaged learning into our classrooms in our own disciplinary units. And then when we did the program redesign for the Bachelor of Media Studies, which is an interdisciplinary, as Richard said,